Well, the thing of it is that there's two things going on here, and the one is that it doesn't really matter because all we are is dust in the wind. Do you know that song? Really?
Yeah, it's a good song.
I gotta tell you something. That ain't exactly the fucking truth, man. We're in Kansas City, Missouri, and Alan came in. He worked at the Art Institute, and my girlfriend was Susan Val, and but she was no longer living with me. I arranged that because I wanted to play around. But he brought in this volume of books called Man, Myth, and Magic. They were published by like the Reader's Digest, and he says, "Have you ever?" He says, "You've always said that you never knew anybody by the name of Alistar." I says, "That's right." And he says, "Well, here." And he opened up one of the volumes and had a picture of a guy by the name of Alistar. And the guy was so funky looking that I took the one volume of the book, there's like 20 of them, but I took the one and just tossed it over on the stuffed chair. And they got to talking. And while they're talking, I started thinking, I gotta look at that book again. Because there was something about the fucker's eyes. You ain't gonna believe this story. You're gonna have to believe me. And I opened it up and I started looking at it. And the things, there were these little two letters, G, D, A, A, and they were bouncing on my head. But the main thing was his name. No, the main thing was his eyes. Anyway, he looked at me and he goes, and they both stopped talking. And she laughed. And he said, "You got delusions of grandeur." 2 months later or less, I took an airplane and I went from Kansas City, Missouri to California to get my birth certificate. And when I got my birth certificate, I could not believe what it said because my birth date was always celebrated on June the 22nd, but my birth certificate said the 24th. And I said to the lady, "This is a copy. I want my original birth certificate." And I said, "This is it. This is it." And the other thing it said is there was no prenatal care. So I took a cab immediately, and I went to the house, the residence, where my mother was residing, 5015 Bestel Street. So I know everything I'm talking about. I know all the names, and I know all the addresses, and I know all the dates. I went there, and I went there immediately from the hospital. And I got there, and I went on up there, and here comes the bullshit. It was a boarded up house. It was on the corner of a street. There was nothing that was special about it, except that it was on the corner of a street, and it was boarded up. And there was a card on the doorstep, a porch, so it didn't get rained on. And it was in an envelope, and it was yellow. I didn't tell you this story. You're not gonna like this story. And the birthday card was about this long and about like that. I've seen cards like that before. When I worked for this Muslim guy years ago, they come from sexual shops or whatever, they're like joke shops and stuff. But anyway, there it was, and it was yellow because it had been stepped on or just, aged. It had been sitting there a while. And what the fuck was it there for? And when I opened it up, inside it said, "Happy birthday from your mother." Gets worse. Like like I said, when I opened it up, I meant I took it out of the envelope. And then I opened up the thing. And it said, Macy shit all over your face. And I got pissed. I got angry. Because the first thing that went through my head is, you motherfuckers knew I was coming here. And then I thought, who are you motherfuckers? Because I had already thought about these motherfuckers, you know. And then I went into the back and I started kicking shit around. And there were old rabbit cages and stuff. And I started going door to door, knocking on the doors. Remind me, I was like 20, oh geez, 20, see, 70, 22, 23. And I'm knocking on doors, asking people if anybody knew my mother. Who the fuck anybody gonna know my mother, you know? When I was, 23 years ago, when I was born, you know? And the police came. I made such a ruckus, the police came. And it was like 6 police cars. And the one cop was ahead of all the other cops, and he was an older cop. And I showed him my birth certificate, I showed him my airplane ticket, and I showed him the birthday card. And you know, that old cop had waters in his eyes, I'll never forget it. And you know what he said? He says, I don't know who you are. He says, I can't help you at all. He says, but I can tell you one thing. Since I've been in the force, we've been watching this house all the time, because it's always been a house of ill repute. There's a story. You want to hear more?
Why was it a house of ill repute? Why did he say that?
Oh, because of fucking, I don't know, bad people. He said something about a treasure and this and things. He didn't know. I should have stuck with him. All these people I should have stuck with. You know, I mean, I should have, but I didn't know. And I didn't think anything more about the car except that I kept thinking that, and you got to understand that this is back in the early 70s. The computers were out, but they weren't predominant like they are today. But even then, they already were giving you the signification that they could do things. I kept thinking that somehow they knew that I was going to California. Somehow they knew that, and they put that card here, and they made it dirty. It's the only thing that made sense. Because the only other availability, the only other thing I could, well, 2 other things. One, it was just a chance from hell. And the other one was that, I can't remember. I was going to say 3 things, but I guess those are the 2 main ones. That they did it on purpose. Oh no, there is the 3rd one. And the other one was that it was chance from hell, and then the 3rd one. And the 3rd one was that it was actually real. Took a plane and went back to Kansas City, Missouri. Uncovered all these things in the basement. One of them I sent off, and I still have the authenticated letter, and I still have the objects. An authenticated letter from the New Mexico Museum. It's a highly reputable museum, authenticating the pieces and dating them in the mid-19th century. Wishing for a donation. But see, the problem is that I found other treasures later. When I come back from France, I didn't know where the fuck I was going. And I landed in that house. Not just with that letter from Israeli Regardi, but with that handwritten document from John Wesley, dated 1722, life. It's been so fucked up. And I've always tried to, and it hadn't been that fucked up. I mean, it's been fucked up. Have no mistake about it. But because my mind's so fucked up, my ego bounced higher, and I thought I was special, you know, and that type of thing, you know. So I made the best out of it. But the bottom line is I have not had a normal life from the get-go. My life has been fucked up. See, when I went with Gary Tapper, T-A-P-H-E-R, to Fresno, California, I went to see a dermatologist because I had a bad case of acne on my back, and the dermatologist said it was heredity. And I said, and I had no reason not to believe him, except that I had a reason to act that I did not believe him, to question him. And I said to him, oh no, that's the way I did it. No, 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 I know my family tree, blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that. He says, I'm sorry. He says, what you got is heredity. So I went back and I told Gary, and Gary says, hey man, Gary's the one. Gary says, didn't you tell me that your parents divorced in 1949? I said, yeah, what the fuck you changed the subject for? He says, but you were born in 1950. I said, yeah. And not only that, Vera, but I was born in late June 1950. So my parents may not have been my regular parents. So I hitchhiked. That's right. Within a week, I took another trip. Oh, and by the way, I was dating Kathy Glicksman. She was a cousin of Luis LaBianca. Luis LaBianca?
Who's that?
I don't want to say.
Oh, who is it?
Because I have nothing to do with that.
Who is it?
The bitch that was killed by Charles Manson. 515 Narcissus Street, Corona del Mar, California.
You were dating her or her?
Her sister was Kathy, and she was Lita. Or wait a minute, I dated with my girlfriend was Kathy, and Lita was the other one.
Did you know Charles Manson?
Hell no!
Oh.
But I ended up at the compound years later.
So you met him?
No, he was dead, long gone, and been into history by then.
But Charles Manson? He's not dead.
He was dead as far as that Bowen's Ranch went. I ended up on Bowen's Ranch, but I didn't plan on going there.
How'd that happen?
I took all my things and put them in a pickup truck and went to see Cameron. I left Kansas City, Missouri eventually.
Yeah, you've had a wild life.
That ain't nothing. Yeah, I know. But as far as I'm concerned, this story of Manson throws you way off balance. Because that was just a fucking visit to the Yosemite, you know. I mean, it was nothing. George Lucas, did I tell you about that? Was over his house. They were freebasing. That's where you had this like a canister and it shoots out the fire, you know, like a welding torch, and you put it up and you freebase it, and you do crack or you do cocaine somehow. It's called freebasing. This is before they do what they do today, which is to just smoke the crack.